and exploring and experimenting adults. Our incidents, what do you think? You think they're happening? Where do you hear them happening? Anybody? Yes, Spat?
Pretty much everywhere. Government, industry, and academia all seem to be targeted, although different kinds of attacks.
Well, that's absolutely true. The interesting hype is that it's mostly academia that is wholly and wide open, and the incidents are happening here in our colleges and universities. As you'll see, I also gathered and analyzed incidents from corporate and not-for-corporate environments. And you'll see that there's no difference in the incidents between those environments. We hear that these attacks are costing the nation billions. There's an awful lot of hype about these incidents. That we're losing ground to those who do harm. That cyber fraud is rising by over 20% annually. That 1% of households are victims of phishing expeditions. That the percentage of infected, that a large percent is infected by virus growth, up to 10% per month. That hosts compromised are less than 30,000 per day. We're hearing a lot of hype. The question is, what is really happening? Well, this is just a brief sample of some of the data access or data vulnerability incidents that have been reported in colleges and universities. April of 2005, unspecified unintentional exposure in Florida. Same month, 40,000 at Michigan State. Same month, 106,000 at Tufts. Same month, 19,000 at Carnegie Mellon. Same month, unspecified intentional unauthorized access at Georgia Southern. March of 2005, 98,000 intentional theft on a laptop at UC Berkeley. 98,000 meaning people exposed or data of personal individuals exposed. March, 120,000 intentional unauthorized access at Boston College. And March of 2005, 59,000 at Cal State, Chico. And the question is that just happening in academia? Of course, what we hear in the news and what we hear from the government is that academics are wide open and this is the source of most of the problems in cyberspace. The reality is we don't hear about it in the corporations because, of course, the bottom line is profits and reputation, and they don't want that information out. But here's a couple of examples to let you know it's happening there, and my research is basically showing that the severity and the frequency are not much different in those two environments. June of 2005, 40 million, look at the numbers, credit card accounts exposed. May of 2005, 676,000 through an intentional access to, and my spacing isn't good on that slide, sorry about that, just to show you that we're talking about very large exposures when they happen in the corporate environment. We started this project knowing that we had to have a nationally recognized board of advisors. You'll recognize somebody's name on here, Jean Spafford from CERIAS, Purdue. Sean Butler's from Carnegie Mellon, she's a researcher. Mark Brune is a VP from Indiana. Rob Clark was the past president of the National Association of Auditors because we wanted to look at people in different roles and get their input, not just sysad people or people in information security. Gene Schultz from Hightower Software, Barb Simmons, who is the past president of ACM, has been involved in this research. Jack Seuss from Maryland. Frank Vinnick, who is a senior risk analyst for United Educators, which is the insurance company that helps universities and colleges with their insurance for risk. Rodney Peterson from EDUCAUSE. Tracy Mitrano from Computer Law and Policy at Cornell University. So these were the people on the advisory board. Great folks to give input and direction to this project. The project had a methodology that is very important, and I want to spend just a little bit of time on this because if you ever want to do research on computer incidents or security incidents, you will realize quickly that people are not going to fill out forms when you mail them. They are operating with their hair on fire, and they don't have time to do that kind of response. Research for them is irrelevant, most of the sysads. They are definitely not going to fill this out over the web because of the security of the web. So how do you get people to talk with you openly about the kinds of things they're struggling with and dealing with? Our methodology is a direct person-to-person methodology. That means that we felt it was important to sit down person to person in the office of the person to talk about the incidents. And consequently, it was a time and people-intensive methodology. We used, just as a little side note, we used a piece of software called SPSS Data Entry. Anybody here know that software? It's interesting because you can put your whole questionnaire right on your laptop in the software and then sit down with the person and have them describe an incident to you. And they describe it in detail, and you can take every word verbatim right down on your laptop and then go through your questions. And they're all keyed to numerics already. So as soon as you answer, you mark in the answer that they gave you. When I usually burn a CD as backup and then go back home, and we dump it directly into the database, and it goes in as numerics. And so you're ready. You don't have to do the translation. You're ready to make sure it's clean data and ready that it can be run. There were some bugs in the beginning, but it worked very, very well. With this kind of research, it's very important that we separate the identifiers from the data. And in fact, I destroy those identifiers very rapidly so that I myself don't end up going out to a group like you and saying, hey, you know what happened at Purdue? I don't want to be able to make those connections. And so we destroy those connections right away as soon as we know that the data is running. We were able to involve 36 colleges and universities. We didn't have enough money to do a real random sample. We were able to do clusters, geographic clusters. So we did a West Coast, an East Coast, a Midwest, a Washington, D.C., Virginia area cluster, a Massachusetts cluster, a Texas cluster, and so on. We went to places where we could get enough colleges and universities within relatively easy travel time that it made our flight expenses accountable and sustainable. So we were able, in fact, to use clusters as a way of gathering the data. Within those clusters, we used public and private, large and small institutions. And we asked for the person who knows the most about or handles the people incidents as one of the people we wanted to talk with. The person who knows the most about or handles the systems incidents, that might be a security person. The person who knows the most about or handles the data incidents. Often that was an administrative computing person within the colleges and universities. For each of those individuals, and I can go into more detail on the methodology if anybody wants to, but I'll skip that now. For each of those individuals, we asked them to describe 3 incidents in detail that had happened within the last 12 months. And then we committed them to giving us the next 3 incidents that occurred after we left. And they did that over the phone. So we basically had retrospective data and current data. And by the way, the analysis showed there was no difference. I was worried that the retrospective data might be the outstanding incidents, the showstoppers, and that the current incidents would be totally different. That what they would recall would only be the outstanding incidents. But in fact, that was not the case. Statistically, we saw no significant difference. We also then, from colleges and universities, by gutting 3 approximately from each institution, the experts identified by the Chief Information Officer, we then had about 92 participants, and from them collected 320 incidents to be analyzed. We did the same in the corporate and not-for-profit environments, but they aren't organized the same way that universities are, as you can imagine, so there might only have been 1 or 2 people there that would handle all 3 categories of incidents. Again, we asked for 3 incidents in detail. We did not ask for current from that group because of the timeline on our project. We were too pressed for time at that point. 42 participants were active within the